What's up, everybody, and welcome to a Tuesday episode of Morning Cuppa Hockey presented by Bet365. Whatever your bet is, it's never ordinary at Bet365. That's Colby, Cohen. I'm Jonny, Lazarus, and I am horny this morning. We have a great episode coming for you today. We got Jeff Marek.
Jonny, imagine if this was someone's first ever episode and maybe they're audio only, you know, they're just listening via podcast. And
I can't hide it. I'm sorry.
That's how you start the show. What is wrong with you? Like, I hope your mother listens to this episode.
She does.
As a matter of fact, I'm going to text her and make sure your mother listens to this episode, and then she's going to smack you in the face.
I think Emily's mom listens to some episodes too.
Oh my God, that's so bad.
Yeah. Sorry. I'm happy. The Rangers won their first home game of the season on November 10th. And you were chirping me, but I don't care. I'm very happy that they did. They didn't even play great.
It's endearing.
What?
I think it's endearing. I think your whole attitude is endearing. And before we do this, I want to start, Jonny, before we do a little bit of hockey. It is Veterans Day, right?
Yeah,
so and Remembrance Day in Canada. You know, Veterans Day, obviously something that's really important. You know, our service members here in the United States, the people that you know, they put their lives on hold so people like us can do what we do.
Mhm.
And I think it's important that we say thank you to everybody who has served and everybody who is currently serving. I know that we normally have veterans in our chat. You know, I used to be around the Flyers Warriors guys every week. I'm not able to do that anymore with the Titans thing. But I truly do love those guys and appreciate those guys. They're some of the greatest people that I've met. You know, New York Marine is in our chat religiously. He's one of our greatest supporters. Jeremiah, you know, there's others, the list goes on. And then in Canada, it's Remembrance Day, which, you know, Remembrance Day is a little bit different than Memorial Day because, you know, you're talking about the end of World War I. You're talking about those who have fallen. So a little closer to what we have in the States as Memorial Day. I think a lot of people kind of confuse Veterans Day, Memorial Day, which is okay. I think it's important to learn these things, but I also just think it's important to remember, again, these people are heroes. We overuse the word heroes in our vocabularies. And I truly feel that, you know, the people that sacrifice themselves and they are willing to put themselves out there, you know, no different than a firefighter running into a burning building, no different than a police officer running into a, you know, a crime scene, whatever it may be. Like, these, to me, these soldiers and to me, those are heroes. And as you can tell, I always like to wear USA gear. I'm very proud of you know, where I'm from and you know, of this country. And look, it's something that I love talking about. My grandfather was in the Air Force in World War II. You know, and I have all these cool old photos of you know, medals and flight logs and you know, different awards and things that his you know, department was part of. And so, again, I just wanted to take a couple of minutes, Jonny, before we do dive into why you're so happy about the New York Rangers and make sure that we recognize all the great people here in the States and in Canada, you know, for their contributions as well. So I'll go back to you here, Jonny. And
No. How can you go back to me? That's very well said.
This is not supposed to be some sad, you know, situation. I don't think it's sad. I think it's something that it's important. And I think that, you know, we talked about it and now I think we got to talk about hockey because people are here to listen to us talk about hockey. So it's okay to transition right back to hockey, Jonny.
Well, very well said. And we do have our dear friend, Jeff Marek, waiting to join the show. We haven't had Jeff on yet this season. So excited to, I feel like when we talk to Jeff, it's just like, it reminds me of like closing down a bar at like 2 a.m. and three guys just talking hockey and it can go anywhere. So I love having Jeff on here because I never know where the conversation is going to.
Long time, but I do.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, but you know what I mean? Like, it's just, I never know where the conversation is going to go, but it's always like creative, insightful, and actually like well articulated. So it's always fun having Jeff on here. to start the day. But before we bring Jeff on, just want to give a quick word from our sponsor, Parasso, the most complete choice for shaving and beard care, made in Italy since 1948. Parasso has been a staple of Italian culture and barbershops globally for 4 generations. So get 15% off at parasso-usa.com with our promo code Hockey15 in all caps, Hockey15. And with that, let's bring on Jeff Marek. Jeff, how you doing this morning?
I'm great. Can I make a dick joke off the top of the show too? Is that
Please do.
The flavor of the day? Is that how, it's funny. So hearing that you barely have enough loose skin to blink right now, Jonny, because the Rangers won yesterday. Someone get some eye drops for Jonny. The skin is too tight around the rest of his body. He cannot blink right now. I remember a story that Brad May told me. We'll get into hockey after we do a little morning joke. Morning, everybody. Talking about members here. Brad May told me when he joined the Toronto Maple Leafs, Brian Burke sort of always took Brad May wherever he went. And Mayday said it was one of his first games, might have been his first game with the Maple Leafs, and they're playing the Montreal Canadiens at home, Air Canada Centre, now Scotiabank. And George Laraque is in the lineup, and Berkey said to Mayday, like, you don't have to do this. Like, just so you know, I know you're new on the team. I know you want to sort of, prove it to all the guys, be a good teammate. You're here for toughness, but you don't have to fight George. Like, George is, as we all know, like, he was the toughest at his time. And Mayday's like, oh, okay, Berkey, like, we'll just sort of feel it out and see how it goes. So sure enough, like, Mayday fights him. Doesn't win the fight, but like he's right in there with George. Like it's not a beatdown. This isn't with Trent Frederick last night. This is like they hung, like Mayday hung with him. And he said that Brian Burke comes into the room after the after the game and goes, Mayday, that was awesome. That was a dark suit fight. What a great fight that was. That was a dark suit fight. And Brad's like, thanks, Berkey, but what's a dark suit fight?
Yeah, I was just thinking the same thing.
It's a fight that's so good you hope you're wearing a dark suit to hide the boner. And the whole room cracked up. I've always kept dark suit fight in my back pocket for great fights. Ooh, that's a dark suit fight. Ooh, that's a dark suit fight. Anyway, good morning, gentlemen.
Well, that's a great start, Jeff, because you know what? What I love is that I can get on here all giddy. Colby reels me in. Very sentimental about Veterans Day and Remembrance Day, and then you come right back with it.
Thank you.
And get giddy again. So I love that.
As a Canadian, and November 11th is very special for Canadians, and thank you for couching it the very specific way that you did, Colby. I've had family members that served. My cousin Mark from Livonia, Michigan. He served in World War II, stationed in Italy, and then Germany. And some of the stories he would tell at family reunions, but a lot he wouldn't. And there's the old line about the closer you get to the front lines, the less you talk about after. And I saw that firsthand through my cousin Mark. And I remember my dad telling me, because I've always been like, if I had to do it all over again, I would have studied history. Like, I'm fascinated specifically with military history, World War I and World War II. And I remember my father saying to me when I was very young and starting to get into military history and the history of conflict in the world, he always said, one thing you always have to remember, Jeff, is in war, there's no such thing as an unwounded soldier. You might come back and your body's okay, but that doesn't mean that you don't have wounds that you're going to take with you your entire life. And so for that, Colby, further to what you were mentioning, I always, especially on a day like this in our country, the men, the women, and the animals as well, who all served and gave up their lives, whether it's male, female, canine, whatever, who served. This is a day that we pause and we reflect. And just after 11 o'clock, it's a somber moment in our country, as we recognize the armistice from World War I, and then our poppies come off. And we thank everyone who has served and made the ultimate sacrifice. So thank you very much for opening up with that. It's a special day in our country. It always is.
Yeah, well, listen, you're a hockey historian, Jeff, and probably, at times you and I, when we're on the phone, sometimes we venture off hockey, and it always does seem to go down the road of history. And it is always... again, like we grew up in different countries, so it's interesting to sort of get perspectives from, you guys above the border on the north, and just how you guys view things. And
The one thing, if I can sort of jump in on there too, like the one thing that I think a lot of Canadians, and I know it's been a challenging year with the relationship with our two countries. Boy, are we going off of hockey here right now, but we've always been really proud, and we've always been really proud in this country to stand shoulder to shoulder with our allies to the south. I know there's been times of conflict before. Certainly, Iraq was a line in the sand between our two countries, but we were right there with you with Afghanistan after 9/11. But the one thing that I think we've always prided ourselves on, which is what has made the last little while, awkward, I guess is a gentle term, is everybody, like, no one here is upset at America. We're always proud to be your brothers and sisters and neighbors and cousins and relatives, and whether it's actually through blood or just through a shared set of values and shared beliefs. Fighting next to Americans is something that Canada's always been proud of, and I hope will always be that way.
And it's just no different than hockey, right? We play on the same team, and then the Olympics come around, and we all try to kill each other. It's like a beautiful sibling rivalry.
Exactly.
We're the Stars and Stripes we're finally waiting to see if we can knock you guys off this year in the Olympics, and we'll become for a couple of weeks when everybody goes to Italy, we'll become great enemies, and then the teams will all get back together again, and Vic will be rooting for Austin Matthews, who's the American superstar playing in downtown Toronto. So it's a perfect segue into a lot of the discussion. Sure. The Hall of Fame happened last night. I was watching some of the speeches this morning. I watched Joe Thornton's speech. I watched Jack Parker's speech, and I'll share this with you guys. And I share this off screen, and I'll be honest with you. Like, I thought about maybe this should be private, but I'm gonna share it because I don't think I don't think it has to be private. I got a text message this morning, a group text from Jackie Parker and Coach Parker. It was a group text together written by Jackie, his wife, and she said, "Without your goal, we wouldn't be here tonight. We were thinking about you, and we love you." Which I call BS on that. He would have been there no matter what. If it wasn't me, somebody else would have scored. But it was a sweet thing to wake up to right after I spent some time listening to his speech. Joe Thornton's speech was emotional. I mean, like, he couldn't get through basically 3 sentences as he was reminiscing on all the people that mattered to him, getting him to the Hockey Hall of Fame. And I thought, that was amazing, just getting an opportunity to hear all that stuff, Jeff. But the place that I wanted to go with you here, because I think this is something you understand and you kind of educated me on a little bit, is why are people like Don Cherry and Barry Melrose not in the Hall of Fame? And what is the pathway for people that aren't? Now, we understand the player category, the builder category. We understand those two categories, I believe. What about the broadcast category? What about the writer category? Like, how does it work for someone like Don Cherry and Barry Melrose? And how are they not in, as you mentioned to me last week? It's called the Hockey Hall of keyword fame. So that means everybody knows who you are. Yes. Well, those are 2 people that everybody knows.
So there is a distinction. This is, boy, how long do you have here, guys? Because I know Jonny wants to talk about the Rangers before the swelling goes down.
Like 10:30.
Okay, so there is a distinction, and different groups vote on different people depending on the category. Now, the group that votes in the players, like Thornton and Decker, Botterill, Parker, that went in last night, Chara, McGillney, Duncan Keith, like the group that votes there are what's called the members of the selection committee, and that's chaired by Ron Francis. Brian Burke is part of that selection committee as well. I'll read you the list of names of the people who vote to get inducted into the Hall of Fame, and then we'll get to the Elmer Ferguson and the Foster Hewitt. So Brian Burke, Cassie Campbell-Pascal, Mark Chipman, Mark DeFoy, Cami Granado, Anders Hedberg, Jerome McGinley, Yari Curry, Igor Larionov, Pierre Maguire, Bob McKenzie, Scott Morrison, Mike Murphy, Eddie Olchuk, David Poyle, Luke Robitaille, and Joe Sakic. Okay, so that is the selection committee. So that is the the route by which the players and coaches who we saw last night. Oh, I should mention Danielle Sauvageau as well, who's the first woman to go in as a builder. That was their path to get into the Hockey Hall of Fame. Now, in 1984, there were 2 new awards that were created that kind of run beside induction into the Hockey Hall of Fame. And that selection committee does not vote on what is the Foster Hewitt Award, which honors members of the broadcast media, or the Elmer Ferguson, which honors members of the print media. That is voted on by the Professional Hockey Writers Association. It is the Professional NHL Broadcasters Association that votes on the Foster Hewitt. So the path for, although I personally, guys, believe you can make a builder's case for people like Barry Melrose, the path for the Don Cherries and the Dave Hodges and the Barry Melroses and the Ward Cornells, and I could go on and on, Ron McLean's, could go on and on and on. The path for them is the Foster Hewitt Award. Again, you're not being inducted into the Hall of Fame. You are being honored by the Hall of Fame. Sure, you get a ring and you get your own luncheon, but you're not up on the big stage and you're not considered a part of the Hall of Fame like Thornton, like Sauvageau, like Jack Parker, like Alexander McGillney, Duncan Keith Chara who we saw last night. So that would be their path. One of the issues that, and Colby, you and I were talking about this the other day, one of the issues that I have with how the Foster Hewitt Award is handed out annually, and I want to preface this saying, I'm not trying to slight anybody. All these people are outstanding in their field, and they are top of their field, right? Like Razor goes in last night. He's like a Cadillac of NHL broadcasters. Like anyone who's ever heard him as part of a call is instantly delighted, and he's super recognizable, and he sells the game a very specific way, and he frames the game a very specific way, and he's one of the most entertaining, color commentators that we've ever heard in the game. And he's worked with multiple play-by-play voices as well, and he's a versatile broadcaster. My issue has always been the Foster Hewitt Award seems reserved for, I shouldn't say seems, it is. It's reserved for people that do either play-by-play or color commentary. Studio shows seem to be exempt from this. I think Barry Melrose should have won this by now. I think Don Cherry should have won this by now, and Ron McLean. I mentioned Dave Hodge, who might be the first out of all of them who needs to go in. Ward Cornell, who was the host of Hockey Night in Canada from, I want to say, 58 to 71. Like, I think these people should have won a Foster Hewitt Award along the way here. So, and Barry Melrose, I'll put right in that, right up around the top of there, because when hockey was quote unquote dead, right? Barry Melrose was one of the only voices, and I would argue maybe the most important voice, who kept this sport alive, certainly on ESPN, at a time where hockey was still trying to figure itself out. There was Barry Melrose keeping the sport alive. I think that needs to be recognized from a historical point of view somewhere along the line, and should have already happened. But my main issue is it's only the play-by-play and color guys that go in. Yeah. That I have a real problem with. And that is, and I'm not part of it, that is the NHL Broadcasters Association. Chuck Hayton is the president there. I have an issue with it. I think a lot of people do. I've talked to John Shannon about this extensively. Like, John was an executive producer of Hockey Night in Canada for a long time, and he, there are a lot of people that should be in the Hall of Fame that did studio who worked under his nose. So he's quite passionate about this too. So it has been brought up. It just, as of, today, here we are, Tuesday, November the 11th, it has so far just been ignored, as there's been a lot of play-by-play, regional play-by-play and color commentators that have gone in above other people that have done significant work on behalf of the great sport of hockey. I know it's a long-winded answer. Johnny, I hope your swelling hasn't gone down yet.
No, I mean, I kind of like listening to you guys speak. Yeah, I just kind of sit back when you two talk about this stuff.
J-Rock's comment, because I think it sheds light on something that's important. And I also want to highlight something Jeff said to me last week that we probably take for granted a little bit, but it's called the Hockey Hall of Fame. Okay.
Yes.
So if you're famous, everyone should know who you are. It should not be localized to, let's say, a market. If you are a play-by-play guy in a local market, you may be incredible and you may be so beloved in your city, but no one else may know who you are. And there are names that Jeff gave me that I'm like, you know what? I've sort of heard of that person. They are in the Hockey Hall of Fame. How a guy like Don Cherry, who I grew up at Roger Nielsen's hockey camps watching those tapes, and he actually used to come to the hockey camp and speak in front of us. And same with Barry Melrose, who, look, I hold Barry near and dear to my heart in a personal manner, but on top of it, the reason I was so excited to work with Barry is because I grew up watching him on ESPN, Barry's Bistro, NHL Tonight, you know, just all the great suits and the slicked back hair. It's really, really important. And then J-Rock's comment, Vic, maybe you could put that on the screen, and I'm going to read it out for everybody. It's called the Hockey Hall of Fame, not the Hockey Hall of Nice People. There are some people in their personal life who maybe aren't great people. And he said, don't let it cloud your choice. Like, and I agree with that. You may disagree with something Don Cherry said, and that is your right to disagree with. That does not change the fact that whether you grew up in Villanova, PA, as I did, you know, in the late 80s and the early and mid 90s, or Jonny in you know, Long Island, we all grew up on Don Cherry. And imagine, this is before you know, social media where you could just watch him anytime, but we still knew who he was. And so it's important that we remember that it is the Hockey Hall of Fame. Fame is famous. People that go in there, you know, maybe they didn't win a Stanley Cup, but they need to be super famous in the game of hockey, you know, and I think that that part is something we lose sight of when we're talking about some of these inductees. And it's important to understand why people go in, how they go in. And look, it should be people that are famous in the game of hockey, not people that are only known in one city.
Yeah.
I wonder who today's like Don Cherry and Barry Melrose are.
Can I throw
There
one
aren't.
quickie?
I know.
Can I go for one quick about? I think that there should be a blend of both, because hockey still, like at the NHL level, like not capital H hockey, but NHL hockey. I think it should be a blend of both, like nationally recognized figures and also significant contributors at the local market. This is still like this is still a sport that relies on butts and seats, and there are a lot more fans that are just fans of their NHL team as opposed to the NHL at large. So I think, Colby, that I pick up what you're putting down. I just think it should be a blend of both.
Okay.
But right now, it's exclusive to regional play-by-play and regional color.
Yeah.
As far as broadcasters go.
Go ahead, Jonny.
No, I was just, again, like I was thinking, like, Colby, to your point, I didn't grow up on Don Cherry. Like, I watched YouTube videos every now and then, but I didn't like see him on TV, you know, from Long Island. Like, it's just not what I grew up on. But every morning before I'd take the school bus, I'd sit at my kitchen table. I'd have like my Cocoa Puffs or whatever I was eating that morning, or like a Pop-Tart or what toaster strudel.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'd wait for 7:52 to hit on the TV, because that's when Barry Melrose came on for his 3 to 5 minute hockey hit. And that was the only 3 to 5 minutes you were going to get for hockey. And then I'd sprint out of the house and get to the school bus. Like that's what I grew up on. But again, like that's also something to be said too, right? Like there is no Don Cherry or Barry Melrose anymore. Like those guys, to your point, Jeff, like they kept hockey popular. Like again, more personally for me, it was Barry Melrose, just because like where I grew up, but he was the only person I could find on TV talking hockey as a kid. The only one,
and,
you know?
And that's why I think, you know, furthering, you know, what Colby and I were talking about last week when we were having the conversation about this is there's value there.
Yeah.
Right. That is keeping someone's spark for hockey alive every single day. Like, and again, like I don't want to disqualify anything that a regional broadcaster has done. There's a lot of value there going like that deep with one organization, one team. But there's a lot to be said for, and I know we're focusing this around Barry Melrose, and I'm glad we are, because like I grew up watching. I'm old enough, guys, who have watched Barry Melrose play and watched Barry Melrose coach. Certainly in
I'm
1993, him and Pat Burns going back and forth with. Well, I thought, like, man, we're gonna get like a coach fight here in the 1993 conference final. This is awesome. But what he did for hockey in the United States, I would say, is more difficult than what Don Cherry did for hockey in Canada. Not to diminish what Don did, but everyone's a hockey fan here, right? Like Don created this persona that made hockey fans love the sport more. Like I've always said that one of the ways you can sort of win in media is get people to love something that they always loved, but love it in a different way. And like him or not, Don Cherry showed you how you can love hockey in a different way, right? But this is all for Canadians. I mean, we grow up, and every time a kid is born, the first question we ask is right shot or left shot. But what Barry Melrose was able to do in the United States, where hockey has always taken a back seat, like that's where the real heavy lifting is. Right? That's where, like, you know what? You're going to wait till 7:52, Johnny, to get hockey because they got to go through football and baseball and basketball and NASCAR and whatever else.
Everything before hockey.
Everything. And then if we have time and it's not going to get bumped, we'll get to Barry's segment. Like he was fighting against to try to make sure that there was a voice for hockey in the United States buried underneath this avalanche of other sports. Essentially what I'm saying is Barry was given every reason to quit. And he never did. Yeah. Like it must be like increase, and like there's more media presence now, and hockey is more of a mainstream sport than I would argue it's ever been in the United States. You can tell me whether I'm right or wrong on that one.
1,000%.
There. But what Barry did was hard. Right? Because going to work every day, knowing that you are going to take a back seat no matter what happens here. But inside you say to yourself, hockey still needs a voice. Hockey needs a voice. Hockey needs someone that can tell people what's happening in this sport and maybe try to attract new viewers to it. One of the reasons why I always point out about possible expansion to Canada. One, I don't think we have the markets for it. I apologize, Quebec City, I apologize. But you're not making any new hockey fans if you put an expansion team in Canada. You're not. You're making zero new fans. You put a team, even back in Atlanta or Houston or wherever we're talking about going now, you are making new fans. Yeah. And what Barry did for so many years, and Colby, you know this, like Johnny, you know this, it's not just at the NHL level, it's college hockey too. Right? Like I can't say enough about how much respect I have for Barry Melrose, and he was entertaining as hell too. Like he was a personality that you gravitated to. He was a guy, talked about like, hey, last call conversation. That's the guy you want to be sitting next to at last call because you don't want the conversation to stop. That's how I feel about Barry Melrose, and I hope that there is that Chuck Caton and the NHL Broadcasters Association have a sort of change of mind about who they bring in as their honored member with the Foster Hewitt, and Barry Melrose gets a lot of concert. But the problem is, how do you do Barry Melrose before you've done Dave Hodge?
Yeah, there's a lot.
Like,
well, listen, it's
you've added up, and now what do you do?
It's a topic that's not going away. So next year we'll be able to dive into it again because we'll still be sitting here waiting and hoping and hoping it all changes. But Jeff, speaking of changes, I do want to pivot with you a little bit here, and I want to pick your brain on this and see what you're hearing, because obviously Johnny wants to talk about the New York Rangers, and we will. We're not there yet. I want to focus on the team that the New York Rangers beat last night, because when you see this team continually lose and we start to hear that they're close to blowing it up, and I think back to John Hines actually speaking to him when he was still the Nashville Predators head coach in Chicago a couple of years ago, and thinking, I think it's going to work out here, because I think Barry Trotz and I have a little bit of a similar mentality on how we want to play as a team. John Hines is known for having really good structure and really good details and having teams that are he prefers to have a really strong defensive team rather than a horse race type of team, right? That doesn't happen, right? Trotz goes out and hires Brunette. We know the relationship there. It has not been pretty. Is Andrew Brunette going to survive this week? What are you hearing out of Nashville, and what does your gut tell you with the Nashville Predators right now as to what they're going to do?
Yeah. What I've always heard about the Nashville Predators with Barry Trotz is he does not want to fire Andrew Brunette. And this goes back to last season, that this is the last thing that Barry Trotz wants to do. Having said that, there's only what can you do if you're the Nashville Predators and Barry Trotz right now? You can do one of two things. You can fire a coach, or you can make a massive trade. But right now, this team needs a shakeup. This team needs something. You know, just as a sidebar issue, I was bringing this up yesterday on the show. I wonder what a team like Nashville Predators are thinking as they see, you know, Leo Carlsson and Macklin Celebrini and Connor Bedard starting to help lead their teams out of the darkness. And you can say in the Western Conference, okay, you can see the path for all these teams now and these young, exciting superstars. Meanwhile, the Nashville Predators, not this past summer, but the last summer, doubled down on aging veterans. You know, you wonder if you're the Nashville Predators, like, do we need to get into that game now? Because we're starting to see what the next wave of top team in the Western Conference is going to look like. Neither of these teams are there now. I know Anaheim is closest, but you can see what direction the conference is going right now, and Nashville is quickly getting left behind. Look, there are teams that would love to have Steven Stamkos. You know, there would absolutely love to have. There are teams out there, and I wonder even after last night's performance as well by Stuart Skinner, there are teams that would love to have UC Saros, I'm sure. I don't think Trotz wants to fire Brunette. He may have to. The question then becomes, does Barry go behind the bench himself, best coach in Nashville Predators history? I don't think he wants to. Or do you go to Carl Taylor, who's the head coach of the Milwaukee Admirals, the AHL affiliate of the Nashville Predators? That's your decision there. Or do you start to test the market on some of these other players? You know, I was thinking about something on the weekend too, guys. The two teams that it came down to for Jonathan Marchessault were the Nashville Predators and the Anaheim Ducks.
I thought Devils
were Ducks. It was Ducks and Preds, and he decided Nashville. Not that you can like live with regret. Hindsight is 2020. I don't know if the desire is still there or it's a full shop in Anaheim right now. But Barry Trotz would have options if he does decide to tear it down. The issue with it is, you know, the rink there is undergoing a $700 million renovation for, you know, relatively new owner Bill Haslam, and that's predicated on getting butts in seats and getting people to the rink. So it's not as easy as just saying, hey, blow this whole thing up, but doubling down on we're a good team, we're a couple of pieces away from making the playoffs ain't working right now. To me, the big, again, like I know I've been banging on this drum for a while, but if they're going to make the Andrew Brunette move, does Barry go behind the bench? He doesn't want to. Trust me. I don't think Barry Trotz wants to. And part of me is like, nah, that's never going to happen. But if you're Nashville and you're going to try to go for it this year and see what happens and then maybe make big decisions at the end of the season, you have to at least have the conversation, don't you?
I mean, you say go for it. What are they going for? Like,
try to make the playoffs.
Yeah, but
like that won't be like that's not, listen, that's not just the manager's decision. Like one of the best skills you can have as a manager right now in hockey is managing upwards. It's not managing like your coach and the players and all that. Your biggest skill right now is managing your owner. Right? And if they make the decision and they go with, you know, with Barry as the head coach, maybe, you know, David Poyle's son, who's been there forever, maybe he slides over as a co-GM. I don't know. Like I've thought about like how this can work, because you can't have a coach GM right now. There's just the responsibilities are too big on with either position. But it is possible. And right now, if you're the Nashville Predators, isn't everything on the table? Whether it's, you know, moving Philip Forsberg, and here's the other thing.
I think if Forsberg should be the first one on the move.
But okay, so the question then becomes like, okay, like does he want to go? But because he has that kind of control.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to go the rebuild mode, I think it's reasonable to ask a player to go through one rebuild. Careers are short. You can only ask a player to do it once. I don't think you can ask a player to do it twice. And that's where you go to Saros and Berg and say, like, look, we'd love to have you, but cards on the table, this is what we're going to do, and it's going to take some years. Do you want to be part of this? Knowing
if I'm
that you're taking that step back and Stanley Cup's in the rearview mirror.
I was just going to say, if I'm Tom Fitzgerald, I am all over Philip Forsberg trying to get him to the Devils. Like, the Devils need a top 6 winger, like an elite top 6 winger again, to join like the talents of Bratton Hughes. And they have plenty of prospects and picks and assets that they can give up for him. And I don't think he's making like $8 million, I think, right? I don't think
$8.5 million till 2030. But the problem with that, Johnny, is the Devils have like 1.384 million in cap space. Like, that's some crazy cap gymnastics. You're going to have to move a chunk out in order to make that work. That's not let's just say they were willing to eat $2 million a year. Okay. Mm-hmm. Like a Seth Jones move again. We're going back to the Seth Jones move, right? All right. You get him down to $6.5 million. You still got to clear like $4.5-5 million to make it work, John.
Yeah, the chat's saying Palat, and that would be the guy. Like, it would be
okay, but let's see where's Palat's contract.
But what is
why would Nashville do that?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Why would Nashville do that?
Well, you'd have to pay for that. Like, that would cost you an extra first-round pick in order to take Palat. Why would they do that? Well, I mean, look, you would do that because you're getting an extra first-round pick or an extra top prospect, and you know he's only got 1 year after this year. So you'd have to pay for that, right? Like, that's the old, okay, we'll take your shitty contract, but that's going to cost you an extra first-round pick, or you were going to give us 1 top prospect, now it's going to cost you 2 situation is the only way you could swing that. So when there's a will, where there's a will, there's a way, Johnny, but that's a lot of dollar movement that I don't think we're used to seeing other than for the Florida Panthers, really.
Let me throw one more thing at you, just as like, again, like, I'm not reporting that this is like a conversation. I just want to give you like a historical background on one thing specifically, and I don't even know if there's any more there, but just let your mind dance away with this idea right now. Remember a few years ago when Gabe Landeskog was poised to walk away from the Colorado Avalanche? And we're all like, oh my God, like, they're really not going to re-sign. Like, they can't come to a deal with Peter Wall and the agent. What are they going to do here? Landeskog is so important. It sounds like it was going to be the St. Louis Blues if it wasn't going to be the Avalanche where Landeskog was going to end up. The contingency plan, if Colorado lost Landeskog, as I was told at the time, and I don't know if there's any embers there, but just like, dance around with this one. The replacement that was discussed between the two teams, if it happened,
I don't remember this.
Was Philip Forsberg.
I don't remember this at all. When was this?
Gabe Landeskog, before he signed his most recent contract.
Mm-hmm.
He hadn't signed. Everyone's like, wow, they can't come to a Landeskog is actually going to believe. I'm firmly of the belief, and there's been no denials about this, that the St. Louis Blues were the team that Landeskog was going to go to. And the contingency for Colorado was, if they lost Landeskog, either a deal was in place or they were having the conversations for it. I'm not sure how far down the road they got, but the idea was his replacement would be Philip Forsberg of the Nashville Predators. Think for a second, and I know they only have $1.50 or $2 million of cap space right now. Think about Philip Forsberg on the Avalanche right now.
Yeah, it'd be loaded. Loaded.
Yeah.
And they still are. They still are loaded without him. Like, they're best team in hockey, aren't they? Aren't they actually the number 1 team in the NHL right now?
For me, they are right now. Yeah. They're
There's
the best team in the NHL.
A lot to like about
anyhow,
that team,
it's like, I don't know what's going to, there's only, and now, like, Nashville's off to the Global Series now for a couple of games against the Penguins.
Yeah.
On Friday and
the Preds flew last night. Yeah. After the game.
Is he going to get the Is he going to get the Gerard Gallant treatment, but over in Europe? They're going to make him fly home on a coach ticket on the way home from Europe.
I was thinking about this before I came on because I'm thinking, okay, we might talk about Nashville and they're off to the Global Series. Was it Shane O'Brien when it was Tampa and the Rangers in Prague? Was it Shane O'Brien who got, because I think he got scratched for the second game.
That was like 08.
And there was that trade to the
09.
trade to the Vancouver Canucks, and like, was it made while he was over there, and they just out of courtesy they didn't want to announce it until they landed back in Tampa, and then got on a flight right away? Like, was Shane O'Brien, wasn't it? Am I right about that one?
I have no idea.
I think it was Shane O'Brien. All right.
I was like 12 years old.
Put it this way.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be the first time. But Barry Melrose probably told you about this at 7:52.
He probably did. Yeah,
Johnny.
he probably did. Yeah. Must not be paying attention that day.
I got to go to practice at some point today, so we got to let you go.
Okay,
we
I'm
could
done.
probably do a 3-hour show. What do you have going for the sheet today before you leave us this morning?
So it's going to be me and Greg from ESPN. We'll talk about Hall of Fame, and we'll probably get into this conversation to the one that we just had about NHL broadcasters, the Foster Hewitt Award and the Elmer Ferguson Award. I think Greg is pretty much on the same page as all of us on the program today, and we are working on. There is, I don't want to jinx it, but we're working on one very specific coach in the NHL to join us today. Fingers crossed that arrow hits the target. We'll see how it goes.
Ask Jeff about his conversation with Steven Stamkos yesterday. He did it. He had I listened into the whole thing because I was right next to him, but Greg had an unbelievable chat with Stamkos.
He did,
which he's probably writing about it, so I don't know if he wants to ruin it, but yeah, you can probably ask about that.
I'll make him.
Yeah,
seriously, I'll definitely make him wreck that. By the way, Tri-State Hockey, I'm super pumped about. That is a very cool idea, Johnny.
I'm sure Colby won't make fun of me for it every day, but yeah, I'm excited. We can get into it a little bit more after the fact, but yeah, first episode will be today. We're going to record this afternoon, so it should come out tonight. I know there were some people asking, but yeah, for me, it's just really cool to do a Ranger show again. I mean, that's kind of how I got my name out there in this industry, just by doing a Ranger show with my buddies. So pretty full circle, I guess, for me. Yeah. But thank you, Jeff. I appreciate you saying that.
I love it.
All right, Jeff.
Thanks
you're the best.
Always,
we
boys.
will be watching
Thanks,
you at 1 o'clock today. All right.
Thanks, boys.
Awesome stuff. Big thanks to Jeff Marek for hopping on. Obviously, everyone knows by now you can find him on the sheet. Always in that chat.
Whoa.
I know a lot of our what?
Singsy. We haven't seen him in the chat much this year. It's good to see our old pal. I see him sneaking around on Twitter, throwing little left jabs, little right jabs. I haven't seen him in the chat this year. So good to see him joining us and gracing us. Our buddy Tommy T, active in the chat today. I'm not sure. I've seen a ton of Tommy T in the chat this year. I don't think, maybe here and there, but good to see him banging on the keyboard this morning. And look, I think, Johnny, you have been foaming at the mouth since last night. You were texting Vic and I a lot of inappropriate things you were planning on doing when you got back to your home or Sweet Baby's home last night. We're not going to get into those because you were buzzing. But I did see a good portion of that New York Ranger game. And I think that's probably where I'd like to start with your New York Rangers. And, before we dive into a couple of the goals that I really wanted to point out, some really impressive things that I picked up on, and I'm sure a lot of others did as well. I do want to ask you, and I want to ask you this in a serious way, even though it's going to come off in sort of a joking manner, but are the Rangers back? Do you watch that game last night? Do you now look at this team with a healthy Vinny Trocheck? And I do have a question on Twitter that I'm going to ask you about Gabe Perreault that we'll get to in a minute as well. I saw you tweet the fact that you put look, it's an accurate thing that you said last night. You just added 2 top 6 forwards or 2 top 6 talents. Maybe one is a top 6 forward, one's an unproven top 6 forward, but a top 6 talent to your lineup. Now, all of a sudden, everybody else falls back in line. Sheary goes to your bottom 6. Radish goes to your bottom 6. Laba doesn't have as much stress on him to contribute offensively. Your boy Lafreniere had his best game of the season, obviously, last night with the way that he played. And so are the Rangers back, Johnny?
I think having Vinny in the lineup does so much that people just can't appreciate enough, because also Vinny kills penalties. He touches every aspect of the game. Like, I know he took 2 penalties in the 3rd period, and, like, people were saying, like, maybe, like, whatever, like, that kind of puts a damper on the great game he had. But his energy just from the jump too, like he does stuff that's like kind of ratty also, right? Like he'll get in the face of an opponent. Like him and Michael McCarron are going at it all night, and McCarron's like a foot taller than him. But also just his leadership in the room. Like he's a great speaker. He's, a guy who gets up in the room and says things. But offensively, he chips in for 2 assists, probably could have been credited for 3. He wins faceoffs. Like, I think Vinny Trocheck has been one of the most important pieces of this Rangers team when they've had success. I know last year was somewhat of a quote unquote down year, but he actually had more goals last year than he did the year before, which is kind of crazy, even though most of them came at the end. But to your point, Colby, like having Trocheck, Lafreniere, and Panarin as a line again together, like that was the most productive offensive line in the NHL 2 years ago. And then you put Gabe with JT Miller and Mika Zibanejad. And I know Gabe doesn't do much on that first Mika goal, but the Rangers just have more skill to attack with on the
Definitely
rush.
more skill. That's
Like,
unquestionable. More
yeah, like
skill. Unquestionable.
off the rush, they're more dangerous.
Well, and
Like you have
he
to
figures in
respect the
on
fact
that
that Gabe's
goal.
out there.
That's a quick transition goal that they score, the one where Gabe gets the assist on it with
That was a power play
Lafreniere,
too.
and
Yeah.
but it's still a play where a lefty gets the puck on the wall and he holds it for 1 second. He sucks a defenseman in, and then he slips it under his triangle of his stick and his feet, right? And gives Loff a good puck in space, and Loff then ultimately makes a good play with it. But you're right, and I do think that you gotta have top 6 skill in order to score goals in the National Hockey League. Like talent, you can work as hard as you want, but if you don't have talent, you're in big fat trouble, and that is just a reality for any team in the National Hockey League. You have to have talent.
Let me say one more thing, though. Like, I'm not naive to the fact that the Rangers played against a Nashville team that had lost 4 games in a row. Didn't look good. Like, the Rangers actually, and I said this to Vinny last night in the postgame. I was like, you guys scored 6 goals, but you didn't really generate nearly as much as you generated in the, like, they had 5 goals on 12 shots. Like both of Panarin's goals were shots that should never go in on an NHL goalie. Mika's goal was obviously a breakaway. Will Cooley had a snipe for the 5th one. Gavrikov, a great screen in front by Lafreniere, like actually working to get to the front of the net and take the goalie's eyes away. But the things that Mike Sullivan has been preaching, and I kind of tested him on this the other night, was how can the guys continue to believe that they're going to break through when the results aren't showing up game after game? And my conversation with Steven Stamkos yesterday as well, like Stamkos said, this has to be a blip, right? Like this team is too talented and the roster is too good for this to be sustainable. At some point, it's going to break through. And the Rangers last night, like, wasn't their best game, but that's the weird thing about hockey, right? When sometimes you play your best, and Vinny said, like, you can get 20 shots, 20 chances on goal, none of them go in, but some nights you'll get 5 and 3 of them go in. Like, that's just the weird part about hockey. Like last night, the Rangers probably didn't deserve to score 6, but they just found a way to put the pucks in. Like they literally had 6 high danger chances last night and had 6 goals.
So I want to ask you this question from Cat Daddy on Twitter at HotVinStinks94. And he said, Jay Laz, you were in the room last night, so you might have the best insight here. Was Sully possibly not as sold on Gabe as some of the fan base was? As I get older, I get a better understanding of coach speak and the nuances. The clips I heard didn't sound effusive with praise. And I did not hear Sully's post-game remarks about Gabriel Perreault. But I will say, you've got to, there's a fine line for a coach to walk about giving a player praise and confidence and not doing what Jonny does to players. And I say that in an actual serious manner that when you talk about a guy as if they are the second coming of Christ, or you talk about him, he's the best thing since sliced bread, sometimes you create unrealistic expectations. Like, I know that I joke with Jonny about how he ruined Lafreniere's career, but I'm only partially kidding. I'm not fully kidding when I joke about that with him. I think you set up a guy for unrealistic expectations, and they're doomed to fail when they're completely unrealistic expectations. So I think Sully has to sort of find a line between making sure that, you give Gabe Perreault the right opportunities to be successful, as he said he would, and
Which he
put him
did.
in a situation to be successful in the top 6. But you also can't sit there and say, this is the best player that ever played for the New York Rangers, because that puts a hell of a lot of pressure on a guy like Gabe Perreault.
But also, like with Mike Sullivan, like a little detail too, after Nashville scored the goal in the first period to tie it up at 1-1, it was a power play goal. Instead of putting Gabe Perreault out there with Miller and Zibanejad, Mike Sullivan actually put out Panarin with Zibanejad and Miller. Like, he didn't put Gabe out after a goal against, because, that's when a team could start pressing again. You need a strong response after you get scored on, right? So he didn't put a guy who's playing his first NHL game this year out on the ice to maybe have him caught in the defensive zone. Like, on his third shift, I think Gabe had 2 D zone. Yeah, Gabe had 2 D zone turnovers on like his third shift. And Nashville was able to sustain offense from those turnovers. Like, it's not like Gabe played that great of a game. I know he had the assist and he had like a scoring chance or two, but like, he played 14 minutes. He wasn't unbelievable. Yeah, he got his first NHL point, and that's a great thing to be proud of. But to the question, Cat Daddy, like, Gabe wasn't one of the best players on the ice last night. Like, he was fine. He fit in. He didn't look like he didn't belong. But I don't think like the response would have been like, wow, like he really showed us a lot last night. Again, it's his first game. There's still plenty of time for him to get there. He's gotten there in the AHL early. Like, he was lighting it up in the AHL to start. So there's no reason to believe he can't get more and more comfortable as he continues to play, especially if he's playing with guys like JT Miller and Mika Zibanejad. And Mika's been playing really well. JT hasn't been playing as good as he could be. Again, I think there's still questions if he's 100% just because he got an injury in preseason. But Mika's been great. So I think having Gabe with Mika could be a good little mix.
So I want to say this to everybody that's here right now. Give us a like on this episode while we have a chunk of you here. We ask you for these little things every day. So today's going to be no different. So give us a like on this episode as you're sitting here and as you're listening. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to call out 2 players for 2 plays last night that I thought were exceptionally good plays. One of them is actually Alexis Lafreniere, and it's not the play that you probably expect to see. And the other one is Adam Fox. And I think we're probably I wouldn't say that I'm overly critical of Adam Fox. Would you say that, Jonny?
No.
I think I'm usually, I think, pretty reasonably fair. I see all the little and all the good that he does and the subtle expertise that he has on the ice. And I also am not afraid to call out things that we've seen, especially from the Four Nations. But, this game got going with Zibanejad scoring that breakaway goal, in the first period. And this is the most perfect freeze frame and well done to Vic. And this is a highlight from the MSG broadcast. But I want you all to look at the bottom of your screen or the right side of your screen at Adam Fox. And I want you to focus on the position of his blade right now, right? And the Nashville Predators are starting to get into their 1-2-2 neutral zone forecheck. Ryan O'Reilly is really kind of working his way towards the dot line, number 90. Forsberg is your F1 forechecker who really is sort of not doing his job at this point, right? And then Wood is changing, 71. Wood had a hat trick last night. Let's give him a couple of clicks for the hat trick last night, the youngster.
Sneaky hat trick.
And the defensemen are trying to change, right? It looks pretty harmless right now, but because Fox, his eyes are on that stretched winger by the Motorola Razor sign. I think that's JT Miller, John.
Yeah.
Is that Miller? And his blade is in an open position, right? So if you roll it just maybe 1/2 of a frame, Vic, and you look at how his position of his eyes and his hands get Wood to think it's okay to change. O'Reilly starts drifting, right, towards the dot line because everybody expects this puck to go out to the wall. And at the very last second, the poise of Adam Fox, right, is able to turn his hands over. okay, and move this puck through the middle and turns his blade over. And that's why that seam becomes open. It's the subtlety, okay, of his eyes and the openness of his blades in his hands, which he closes at the last second. It reminds me of a really good quarterback in the NFL who is able to get a cornerback to bite on a play because he sells it out towards the sideline only to go through the middle, right? And that subtle half a second off look by Adam Fox, that to me is an elite hockey play, okay? To do that in real time, and to most people, it probably goes unnoticed, right? But that is an elite level hockey play right there. It is and that gets the New York Rangers monkey off their back. They get a goal at home. I was watching when that happened, Johnny. The place erupted.
Big
It
time.
really did erupt at that.
Also, there's two things I'll say. The word you're looking for is deception. Right? Like you always talk about a defenseman being deceptive. Like that's what Adam Fox kind of has always had.
Deception is his greatest strength.
Yeah, that's again, like that's a prime example of it. But also the fact that it was Mika Zibanejad scoring too, like that is also critical for the Rangers. Like, Mika is a guy who has been harshly criticized for the past 2 years and deservingly so at times. But he's gotten so many chances and you want to see him score just for his like own personal confidence. Like he's more of a sensitive, soft-spoken guy. But he's always one to face the media when things are tough and things are bad. And I actually found it interesting last night. I was talking to Dan Rosen. Mika didn't talk to the media last night after the game. And, he scored. He had a great game. They won. And I want to credit him a little bit because the other guys, performed, played well. Like Lafreniere doesn't really talk to media a lot. He was in the room talking to media. Like Mika gave other guys the shine. Like he'll take on the negative. And when the team wins, like he'll hand off the glory. And I think that's something that like should be said about Mika Zibanejad as well. Because he literally is the first guy after the captain JT to talk to the media every game.
It's probably
and the
nice
one game they
him.
win.
Yeah.
But you'd think he'd want to answer the positive questions.
He's been around long enough, Johnny, that he's probably just like, let me get out of here tonight. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
I think, listen, you get to a point when you're Mika Zibanejad that you really just want to be left alone. Like, you just don't want to be bothered anymore. Enough is enough. So I thought that was a hell of a play by Adam Fox. I wanted to show it. The other one was the Lafreniere screen on Gavrikov's goal. Don't worry about teeing it up, Vic, because I do have other things that we want to get to. But on the Gavrikov goal, if you guys on your own time want to go back and watch it, watch the job that Alexis Lafreniere does screening the goaltender. I mean, like, there's no chance for a save here because of the screen. And again, I'm harder on Loft than anyone, and that's your fault. Everything's your fault if it's not Vic's fault, obviously. But it was a great screen by him. Look, he had a great night. He was very engaged. The question for him is always, are you going to repeat it? He's so inconsistent. He does that. You coin him as a 100-point guy, and then he will vanish for 6 straight games. And that's been the problem for him in his career. So, Johnny, here's what I want you to do next, because you don't actually know what we're about to show. Give us an Uber Eats read for stat of the day, and then I want to show you 2 different kind of pseudo stats that are going to relate back to the New York Rangers in some way, shape, or form, but it's also going to make you not feel real good either.
Can I also just address, is this better in the chat quick? Because is this better asked? Do guys pick who talks to the media? How does that work? I feel like that's an important thing to explain. Every organization is a little bit different, but the team's PR will probably make certain guys available to the media.
Well,
the media can always
players.
They ask the players first. Yes. Do you want to speak tonight? Some guys will say no.
Will you do media? Will you speak tonight? Exactly. Right.
But the media can also request a certain player, and the guys don't necessarily have to. But some guys are more willing to speak to media than others, and some guys also know they have to answer the questions when things are bad, or they want to answer when things are good. Like, that's just kind of how it works. So it's not like actually the Islanders, though, I will say, if you walk in the Islanders room, they pretty much have every guy sitting in their stall. Like almost every guy is made available.
In Chicago, the locker room would open every day and every guy was available. I mean, there were scrums around a number of
We'll
players.
have practice
So,
for the Rangers, everyone
yeah,
is,
but
but after
even
games, it's
after a
different.
game, the locker room would open and a lot of guys would do scrums in Boston too. So, all right, look, it's 10 a.m. already.
Yeah,
So read
I'll do the
Uber
read.
Eats,
Yep.
and then I want to throw 2 different tweets up, and I want to put your brain on a little bit, and you're gonna have to think. Well, not think, maybe sulk a little bit.
Okay, so this sulking is presented by Uber Eats. Uber Eats is enabling fans to maximize their fandom all season long with exclusive game day deals on the app, from game day eats to paper plates and napkins. If you're hosting, to all the ingredients you need to make your favorite game day dip. Before, during, and after the game, Uber Eats is assisting every fan's hockey experience all season long. I will be Uber Eatsing Westville, possibly tonight, Colby, as I watch the Colorado Avalanche and the Anaheim Ducks, the top 2 teams in the NHL, and NHL on TNT. Late at night tonight. I can't wait to watch that game. I've been all over the Ducks this season. But our Uber Eats stat of the day: the Devils got their first loss on home ice this season last night, and the Rangers got their first win on home ice last night. That's what Vic gave us as the Uber Eats stat of the day. Very creative. And now, Colby, I'll hand it over to you.
All right, Vic, throw this on the screen, please.
Oh boy.
Okay, the top 11 scorers in the NHL and their draft positions. Now, this list is a little bit off because Malkin was obviously the 2nd overall pick, right?
And Kaprizov spelled wrong.
Okay, yeah, but I'm just saying, look how important it is, Jonny, to hit on your top picks in the NHL draft. I mean, like, I'm not actually trying to throw shade at the New York Rangers, but like, it just shows you how important. Look at the guys all leading the NHL in scoring and where they've gotten drafted. And maybe Flyers fans need to see this too. Like, it is so important to have these 1st, 2nd, 3rd overall types of picks hit. And Vic, throw the other. Well, let me just read the list actually for audio only. The top 11 scorers in the NHL in their draft position: Bedard 1st, McKinnon 1st, Celebrini 1st, Carlson 2nd, Eichel 2nd, McDavid 1st, Kaprizov 135th, Rantanen 10th, Nylander 8th, Malkin 1st, and Crosby 1st. Okay. Now go to the other tweet if you don't mind, Vic. And then it said the last cup winning team to not have a player picked in the top 3 of the draft was the 08 Red Wings. Okay. So kind of interesting, kind of interesting.
Who, what round was Datsuk and Zetterberg drafted in, or like Lidstrom?
Those guys were late. Those guys were later picks.
Yeah, that's interesting. I would never have thought the Red Wings of that year didn't have a top 3 pick, but yeah, that's makes me feel like shit. But it's nothing that Ranger fans already don't know. The Rangers haven't hit on a draft pick since Kreider, Stepan. I can't remember the last homegrown stud Ranger. It really is Chris Kreider. Wow, Vic just said Datsuk was a 6th round pick. Is there a question that you want to ask me, or a point?
No, I saw those last night, and I know you were gloating about it. It just opened my eyes. Wow, all these fan bases that are frustrated with their teams that are finishing halfway through and they're not willing to tank, and they're not clearly, if you want to have an elite superstar, you need to tank and be at the top of the draft, right? I mean, you have to look at all those names and look at all the pain that, fan bases have gone through in order to have superstars.
Well, meanwhile, while we're on that conversation, actually, I'd love to go into a different topic if we can. Speaking of that, I'm actually, I'm gonna do a read. I'm gonna ask you a question, but this will be presented by Prime Monday Night Hockey. Prime Monday Night Hockey streams all national regular season Monday Night NHL games on Prime Video in Canada and is available to free Prime members in Canada. Stream Prime Monday Night Hockey exclusively on Prime Video and experience thrilling goals and dramatic plays in the NHL. Monday nights are hockey nights. Don't miss a moment of the action. Coming up on Monday, Cole Caulfield and the Habs visit the Columbus Blue Jackets to take on Kirill Marchenko and the Blue Jackets. Columbus now back-to-back Mondays, I guess, on Prime Video. But you can check out the link in our description for the Prime Monday Night Hockey schedule on Prime Video, or go to primevideo.com/NHL. Subscribe with a 30-day free trial to Prime Video to watch Monday Night Hockey and the new season of Face Off. Download the app or go to primevideo.com. Colby, I think you saw it. Was it Scott Wheeler who put out an article recently that he was at Michigan State watching the Spartans and Penn State series? And like, I think people are starting to say like McKenna is not like this like guy that teams should be tanking for. Like, is that what I read? Did you see that article?
There's a little of that. There's a little of that going on right now, because McKenna at 5-on-5 has kind of at times like struggled a little bit, and that's when I put on social media and asked the question. Like, it's just maybe going to take some of those guys a little bit longer coming out of the CHL. Like, is that NTDP or USHL schedule a little bit heavier and harder on guys? And Verhoff is starting to maybe become in the picture as the number one, the number one overall pick. And look, again, it takes different people, different types of time. We're going to get to see Gavin McKenna in the World Juniors this year. I think a lot of that will determine how people feel about him. It's only been 10 games or something like that in the NCAA schedule. It hasn't been a crazy amount of games in the schedule. But look, it's I don't know. Like, I think what the guy's talent is. I'm not writing him off, but I do think it certainly it makes all this junior hockey development conversation all the more interesting. It really does. It's sort of
we saw this happen with James Higgins last year. Like, Higgins was the sure number one, then doesn't light up NCAA, and then he drops to 7. Like, this is a repeat of that conversation.
And listen, he's not lighting it up this season either.
I'm doing BC UMass this weekend.
Yeah, like, you're gonna get to see him. I mean, listen, Dean Letourneau is starting to really look like a damn player. Everybody wrote him off, but he's starting to really look like a player. It's all part of a larger and interesting conversation. And I think we should have Glenn Heffron on here soon here in the next couple of weeks and talk a little bit about, what's been going on with the CHL, with the NHL, with junior hockey, and sort of this pathway to figuring it out. So what other reads do we have today, Johnny? Are we
just bet of the night?
Yeah, let's talk about our Bet365. All right.
All right, so let's get into our Bet365 bet of the night. We got destroyed last night on the under after the Rangers decided they wanted to score at home. But you know the drill by now. Whatever your bet is, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Download the app and get in on the game. You must be 19 or older. By the way, the bets are 10-9 so far this year, so we have a winning record, which is nice. But tonight's bet of the night, the hottest team in hockey, the Anaheim Ducks on the road in Colorado, are plus 190 against the Avalanche. The Anaheim Ducks are 9-1-0 in their last 10. And granted, the Colorado Avalanche have been playing some really strong hockey, but this is the must-watch game of the night. Anaheim's power play is clicking. I think they're 9th right now in the league. Leo Carlson's on a 10-game heater. Cutter Gauthier is on fire. Nathan McKinnon obviously has 9 points in his last 2 games. Like, Cale Makar is on pace for another 30-goal season. Like, this is going to be such a fun game to watch. And I know Colorado is at home. Me and John just said that in the chat. But when you get the Ducks at plus 190 right now, a team that's been playing as well as they are, I think they've won 7 games in a row. Or 9 games in a row. It might be 9 games in a row. Let me just double check that. Anaheim's won 7 games in a row. I was right the first time. Like, how do you not take a team who's won 7 games in a row at plus 190? That just seems like it's stupid not to take them.
Yeah, that's a big number. And I just can't help but think, Johnny, this Ducks team is so good, but I still think, like, once we get to playoff time, they're going to have to lose and take lumps and have medicine before they – I mean, you look at any of the great teams, any of the wagons that we've seen over the years, they all had to go through playoff growing pains. They all did. Even, listen, St. Louis went through it for years. Washington went through it for years. Go down the list. There's been heartbreak for Colorado before they, like, you basically have to learn how to win through losing, which I know sounds weird. I think you can only do that in the playoffs. You can't learn how to win by losing in the regular season.
Yeah.
But in the playoffs, that can happen. And so I still see that being a problem for this Anaheim team. And if they do, well, then you'll play this clip and I'll eat my words. And, there's plenty of times when I have to eat my own words. It's part of what we do. When you have an opinion about anything, you're going to be wrong sometimes, but that's the way she goes,
I will say though, like, I actually think Leo Carlson, like, I don't want to put words in his mouth or like misquote him, but he did mention the word like contenders. Like they're beating Vegas, they're beating Florida, like they're beating, the top of the line teams in the NHL. Also, listener to our show, Steve Gross, just actually pointed out to me that the Ducks plus 1.5 is actually minus 125. So that's pretty good odds too. But this Ducks team, they're playing fast. They're playing physical. Like there's a ton of skill. The plays they're making off the rush, like Becca Seneca is also adjusting insanely smoothly. I don't know if that's like a way to say something, insanely smoothly, but you know what I mean? Like, I don't think anyone could have expected the start to the year he's having.
He's
but
so
there's this
big, man. That
yeah,
kid's
he
big
is.
and
He's good.
smooth. He's big and smooth, man. He's long. The way he gets the puck out on his hip pocket, he's hard. Like it's hard to get the puck off of him. That's one thing, man. The best puck protectors in the NHL, I want you to watch them. When a player comes to confront them, they get their hands out in front of their body like this way, but they keep the puck out on their hip pocket. And it just makes it so difficult to have a good stick on these guys without basically reaching your arm around and using that free hand. It's such a highly underrated skill. And it's why these big, long forwards have become the flavor of the NHL draft. And we're back to this big player obsession as we've moved off some of the undersized guys in the game of hockey. So there was a lot of good to see last night, Johnny. Your Rangers were good. We talked Hall of Fame. There's some great games on tonight.
Yeah, I'd like to just do us two tomorrow on the show.
We'll just be you and me talking about the games tomorrow, no doubt. And then Thursday we'll have Jimmy Dowd come on the show, which I think will be really, really interesting. Jersey Jim, such a great storyteller and played through a great era of hockey. So make sure you like this episode. Make sure you download the podcast on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, get the automatic downloads going. Leave us comments in the stream. Leave us comments on the downloads. Go over to Spotify, go over to Apple Podcasts, give us a rating, right? Give us a rating, give us a review, all that stuff, super important to the growth of the show. And continue to stick with us here, getting over the hump of Tuesday. 2 more shows to go this week. Lots to talk about after tonight's phenomenal slate of games. We're going to have to kind of figure out, Johnny. I'll definitely be watching.
I'll
Leafs
watch every
Bruins.
game. I'll watch every game. I got nothing to do tonight.
I'll get in hard on Leafs Bruins. So you're going to have to maybe pick a different 7:00 start to dial in on. And then as
I want to watch the Leafs too.
As the 8 p.m. No, I'm the Leaf watcher. All right, you're gonna.
I'll have multiple
I don't
screens
get to watch.
tonight. I'll have multiple
I don't get
screens.
to watch the Rangers because you're always on the Rangers. You got to watch Kings and Canadians. How about that? Canadians are fun to watch. So, and then we'll have the 8 p.m. games going. The Sharks are playing at 8 p.m. That's awesome. Getting to watch Macklin at 8 p.m. Joe Thornton gave Macklin Celebrini a shout out last night in his Hall of Fame speech. Was pretty cool. And then,
I'll tell you what, I'll probably watch Canes Capitals too.
Yeah, and listen, the 9:30 game, Ducks Avs, that game is probably going to be the fastest game of the year as far as speed goes. So we can't wait to get on with you guys tomorrow and dive into things with you guys tomorrow. We hope everybody has a great day. Leave your reviews, leave your comments, leave your likes, get your automatic downloads going, and we will, as we always do, see everybody back here at 9 a.m. tomorrow. Have a good day, everybody.
What's up, everybody? Thanks for tuning in to Morning Cuppa Hockey here on the Daily Faceoff YouTube channel. If you enjoyed the show, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. And don't forget, we've got more great hockey content every day. You can catch DFO live at noon and stick around for the sheet with Jeff Marek at 1 p.m. right here on Daily Faceoff. Until then, keep your coffee hot and your takes hotter.